Hey everyone, welcome to your first C++ Qt game tutorial. This tutorial is specifically about how to make games using C++ and Qt. This tutorial is not about teaching you the fundamentals or the basics of C++, and it's also not about teaching you the very basics of Qt. Now, along the way you will learn a lot of Qt, but you should know a little bit about Qt and a little bit about C++ before even starting this tutorial. So let's just dive right in and create a new project. Choose applications and then Qt widget application, and you can leave all of these settings to their defaults, but just pick a name for your project. I'm going to name it tutorial 1, and then as I said, all of these settings you can leave untouched. You don't have to worry about it. They won't make a difference, but basically they just generate a bunch of files and a bunch of code that we're not even going to use. We're going to delete all these files. So delete all the main window files, including the headers. Okay, good. So the only file we want is main.cpp. Remove this line of code and these two. Okay, there we go. So let's write about the topics of this tutorial. Before we talk about the topics, let's just go over the prereqs one more time. The prereqs for this tutorial is that you have a basic knowledge of C++. Just know about what pointers are, how to use pointers, and memory management. And also you should have a very basic knowledge of Qt. Regarding Qt, the only thing that you really need to know is a few things about widgets, such as what widgets are, how the parent-child relationship between widgets works, and how when you delete a parent widget, all of its children widget get deleted. So just the basics about widgets would do. There are a lot of good tutorials on both C++ and Qt. I'll post links to my favorites, but you're also free to just go find your own on Google or YouTube. Okay, so the topics for this tutorial will be we're going to talk about 3 classes that, in my opinion, are fundamental that you will use in any Qt game that you create. So the first class is QGraphicsScene. A QGraphicsScene is just a container for all of your game objects. So for example, if you want to put a player in your game, you put it into a scene. If you want to put a tree into a game, you put it into a scene, etc. You can think of the scene as maybe a map or a world. The second class that we're going to learn about is QGraphicsItem. Now, any object that you want to put inside a scene has to be derived from QGraphicsItem. So in other words, only QGraphicsItems and its subclasses can go inside a scene. So using our previous example, if you wanted to put a player inside a scene, you would have to have your player class derived from the QGraphicsItem class. The third class that we're going to learn about today is QGraphicsView. Oh, and before I talk about the QGraphicsView, we're going to use QGraphicsRectItem. This is just an item that inherits from QGraphicsItem, and it represents a rectangle. The QGraphicsItem is it's an abstract class. You're supposed to derive from it, create your own custom item, and then your custom item is put into the scene. It's not really meant to be put into the scene by itself. Now the QGraphicsRectItem is a subclass of QGraphicsItem, and it just represents a rectangle. So now let's go back and talk about the QGraphicsView. The QGraphicsView is a widget, and it's used to visualize the scene. So the scene and all the items in the scene are invisible. The scene is just information. It just contains information for a bunch of objects that are inside it. If you actually want to print the scene and all of its items onto the screen, then you have to use a QGraphicsView. Okay, so let's include all of these classes so we can do a quick example. Let's include scene. Oh, wow, bad typing. Include QGraphics. I hope I spelled that right. Let's just do it again. QGraphicsScene. Okay, and then include QGraphicsRectItem, and then include QGraphicsView. Okay, so we included all of our classes. Now the first thing that you want to do is create a scene. And you do that by just putting it on the heap. So QGraphicsScene, we're just going to call it scene. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to create an item to put into the scene. QGraphicsRect. In this case, we're creating a QGraphicsRectItem that we're just going to call rect. Okay, so we want to create a rect item that we want to put into the scene. So we created that item. Now the thing you have to know about the QGraphicsRectItem is that by default, this rectangle has a length and a width of 0. Which means that it's pretty much invisible. Let's change that. So you use the rect's, I believe it's a setRect method to change properties of its rectangle. The first two arguments define the location of the top left corner of the rect in the scene. So if I put 0, 0, it means I want the top left corner of the rectangle to be at the 0x and the 0y position of the scene. Don't worry about this too much right now. We're going to cover scene coordinates and stuff related to it in a later tutorial. The next two arguments that the setRect method of the rect takes basically defines the width and the height. So we want this rectangle to be 100 pixels wide and 100 pixels tall. Okay, so we created a scene, we created an item to put into the scene. Now let's actually add the item to the scene. We haven't actually added the item to the scene. You simply do this by calling the add item method of the scene. I think in C++ methods are called member functions. I use the term method because I'm also used to programming with Python. So anytime I use the term method, I just mean member function. They're identical in my vocabulary. So you use the add item member function of the scene to add our item, which is the rect, into the scene. Okay, so at this point we've created a scene, we've created an item to put into the scene, and we actually put the item into the scene. But if you recall that the scene is not, it doesn't have a visual, it's invisible, it's just information, it's a concept. So if we run our application at this point, we should see nothing. And here we go, it built, but we don't see anything. So let's just stop it. Okay. So in order to visualize the scene, we actually have to add a view. We're just going to call it view. Okay, now you have to tell the view which scene you want visualized, because a view can change which scene it wants to visualize. At one point, it can visualize one scene, and at another point it can visualize a different scene. So all I'm going to do is pass a pointer that points to the scene into the constructor of the view. Alternatively, you can set what scene you want the view to visualize by using the view's setScene method, and you just again pass a pointer to the scene. But I like to initialize it in the constructor, so I don't need this line right now. Okay, now we have a scene, we have an item, we added that item to the scene, and we created a view to visualize the scene. Now remember that the view is a widget. By default, it's invisible, so let's make it visible by calling its show method. And at this point, we should see a rectangle. And there we go. So here is the view. It's the actual widget that is visualizing the scene, which is this white area. This rectangle is a QGraphicsRectItem. So it's a QGraphicsItem that's inside this scene that's being visualized by this view. That's all for the first tutorial. If this was too much all at once, don't worry, I just wanted to introduce these 3 classes because we're going to be covering these classes a lot. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.